When it comes to revision, Kirshner and Mandel put it this way. Revision is all about re-seeing, rethinking, reevaluating, and rewriting your work. It's about re-seeing, coming at it from a new angle, trying to understand what's going on. Rethinking, going through the ideas in your paper and trying to come up with, is there a different way we could talk about it? Reevaluating, how do we address these things in new ways? And rewriting, actually going back and in some cases deleting entire chunks, erasing, as we see here, entire chunks of your paper, putting in new ones, adding new ideas that you didn't have before. It's about a complete overhaul in some cases of where you started from. Now, I like to think of revision as having 4 aspects to it. It doesn't have to be steps. It's not like you have to do these one in a row or anything like that. But we're looking at 4 different ways we can approach the text, rethink, reevaluate the text in order to better get across the ideas of our paper. We look at the central idea or thesis, we look at the main points and evidence, we look at the audience and the purpose, and then we look at organization. So let's break each of these down. The first one is the central idea or thesis. If you've been watching others of our videos, you'll know that the thesis statement is the central unifying idea, the big statement, the big idea or argument you're trying to make in your paper. So the first thing then we want to revise is that big idea. We want to make sure that idea is clear, logical, and makes sense within the contents of what you're trying to write about. So here's some questions you can ask yourself as you're revising. Is my topic narrow enough to cover adequately? Sometimes our thesis statement is far too broad, it's far too wide-reaching, and we just don't have the space to actually cover it in detail. In that case, a good part of revision is actually narrowing in that focus, getting more specific so that we know exactly what we want to write about. Have I clearly communicated the main idea or argument? That's another one. Is it clearly communicated? Can I understand what you mean by your thesis? Or is it unclear? Have you put in a bunch of jargon or ideas are just kind of all over the place and there's not one unifying idea? Make sure that it's clearly expressed. Am I contributing something significant to the conversation on this topic? We like to think of paper writing as an academic conversation that you are stepping into. You've heard what other people have said, and now you are trying to contribute your own ideas to that conversation, just like you would at a party. But sometimes we're not saying anything of substance. So is your idea interesting? Is there something unique? Is there a perspective you're offering that is different or taking further some of the research you've done? And of course, have I clearly stated my thesis in the introduction? This one's key. If your thesis statement isn't written anywhere, you better make sure to add it in. That's the first major piece of revision. Where is that thesis? Is it done well? Is it clear? Have you communicated it? Because if you don't express yourself clearly in a thesis statement, in the introduction, as your professor and your reader would expect from a North American paper, you're just setting them up for confusion. So make sure you spend some time going over, is my thesis clearly and coherently expressed? After the thesis, then, we have the main points and supporting evidence. So this is kind of moving from the very top, the thesis statement, down a level. Those big sections of your paper, the 2, 3, 4 ideas that you're using to support your thesis, now we're going to be looking at how to revise those. And again, some questions you can ask yourself. Have I sufficiently developed my main points, and are they relevant to my thesis? This one's key. If you're writing a paper on greed, right? And you have 3 sections about greed, and one of them is about how greed is the central piece of evil in certain literature, and then there's another point about how greed leads to incredible selfishness and too much focus on yourself. But then your third point is about how greed is all about bringing joy and optimism to the world. Well, something doesn't feel right here. You've got 2 points that are negative, one that's positive. It certainly doesn't sound like you're making comparisons, so something's off here. So make sure that all of your main points, however many they may be, are consistent with that thesis statement. Second, have I left out any important information? Often when we write, we kind of get caught up in the ideas and we put in a quotation and then we analyze it and then we kind of keep going and we realize we've missed a very important piece. One of our main points, one of our supporting arguments, they're missing something. You've forgotten a piece of research you wanted to include. This is the time to catch that and to make sure you add it back in. Have I answered the most pressing questions a reader might have about this topic? The fact is that you know what you mean when you write, but a lot of times when somebody else reads your paper, they might have questions. They might think of something that you didn't when you initially were doing your argument, when you were trying to put together what you wanted to say. So now try to get out of your own head and into the mindset of a reader. What questions might they have? Do they see a counter argument that you didn't consider? Try to think about those things and put something into your paper that addresses that before they even can ask it. Do I need to eliminate any points because they don't support my thesis? This is a big one. Oftentimes as writers, we grow attached to our words, or we think we know what we're talking about, but sometimes you're going to read your paper back and be like, ooh, this paragraph, this idea, this quotation, it's not actually as relevant as I thought, or maybe it doesn't need to be there at all. In that case, take it out. It is much better to have a paper where every single paragraph, every single idea is there for a logical reason than to just throw tangents in there hoping that it makes sense. Don't use the shotgun method and just throw everything against the wall. Make sure that everything is very clearly there for a particular reason to support the ideas that you're trying to express. And have I supported my main points with convincing evidence? It's one thing to have a logical structure of compare and contrast or chronological order or something like that. You can have your sections in a logical order, but if you don't have evidence to back those individual points up, your paper's not going to work. So make sure, have I given enough quotations? Have I given enough paraphrases? Do I have the statistics? Do I have the survey results that back up what I'm trying to say? If not, find the evidence to back you up, or that part might have to be removed. But again, this section is all about, are the ideas making sense? Are the ideas clearly expressed? And do I have enough to support not just the thesis as a whole, but the individual points that back up that thesis? Third section, audience and purpose. This is now moving a little bit more broadly and thinking about who you're writing to and why you're writing. So again, questions. Have I addressed my readers well, supplying all of the key information, including definitions, necessary to follow my argument? This is especially important in the introduction. Have you spent time providing the background information, providing the context, providing the definitions of key terms that's going to help them understand? Because if you don't define things well, if you don't give context well, if you make assumptions in your paper and don't give your reader a reason to buy those assumptions, they're just going to say your argument is biased or unclear or whatever. So have I given my reader everything they need to understand my argument? Do I need to clarify my explanations of key terms or strengthen connections between concepts? Like I just said, do I need to spend more time making sure that my definitions are clear, precise, so that they know what I'm talking about? Do I need to build a better connection between paragraphs, between sections? Do I need to add more so that people understand what I'm talking about? And have I accomplished my purpose? Every paper is trying to do something. Oftentimes it's going to be your task word in your assignment instructions. So persuade, argue, prove, defend, analyze. Have you actually done that thing? But even more broadly, have you fulfilled the assignment instructions? Have you spent time making sure that your paper is in line with what your professor wanted to write? And if they don't give you any specific instructions, if it's kind of just write a paper about a topic in this class, have you answered the research question you set out to answer? That question we talked about at the beginning. Have you accomplished the thing you wanted to accomplish in your paper? And is it clear to your reader that that was your purpose from the beginning? These are the kinds of things you're doing in this part of the revision process. And the fourth step of the revision process is about organization. Now we're kind of narrowing in a little bit. Before we've been talking about ideas and arguments and how these all piece together, but now we're talking about the individual paragraphs that make up those arguments. So things to do here: identify the main point of each paragraph. This is going to be that topic sentence, that first sentence of each paragraph explaining what those paragraphs are about. And make sure that every topic sentence, every paragraph goes back to the thesis in some way. Is it clear why this mini idea in this paragraph is part of the larger paper you're trying to write? Are your paragraphs too long or too short for reading? Both can be problematic. We want to make sure our paragraphs are a good length. For the most part, you want to keep one idea per paragraph, but within reason. Sometimes you might have a couple of ideas, like smaller ideas all in one paragraph, but mostly one idea per paragraph. You might also need to reorganize your paragraphs according to your paper's logical structure. Again, like I said, sometimes our ideas as we're writing, kind of go off on tangents. We get excited as we're coming up with our ideas, and all of a sudden we've drifted away from the direction we originally wanted to go, and we're all over here, and then we jump, and then we jump. Sometimes the best thing you can do in the revision process is reorganize. Shift your paragraphs around so that they're in a good order, that they actually fit a logical structure. You don't want to be having something about the end of history in the middle of your paper. Do the beginning, then the middle, then the end. Same with cause and effect. Don't just all of a sudden jump to the effect and then give a cause and then another effect over here and then the cause of that effect. Be logical. Cause first, then effect. Spend the time making sure that your paragraphs flow in a logical, cohesive way. If you're trying to build more cohesion between your paragraphs, you can also try the following. Incorporate transition phrases or words. These are like signposts. Words or phrases that show your reader you're moving from one idea to the next. These are words like however, therefore, moreover, although, in other words, for instance. Also, additionally, have these words that are going to help guide your reader that, additionally, we're adding a point here. However, we're kind of doing a contrast to what we were talking about before. Therefore, we're getting to the result. We're kind of landing on a point for this idea. Use those words to show your reader what's coming next. And you can also consider putting repetition in your paper. Now, be careful with this one. Too much repetition can get annoying. It can get overwhelming and overbearing, but just enough repetition, a word or two here and there throughout your paper, can show your professor or your reader that you have a logical link with the ideas you're talking about. If you use the word plastic a few different times in the course of one paragraph, it's going to remind your reader, oh yeah, we're talking about plastic here. This is what's important. Similarly, if you have two paragraphs and you use a similar phrasing in each of them, it's going to create a mental link for your reader between the two paragraphs. So yes, organization is about moving paragraphs and making sure your paragraphs are in a logical way, but it's also about building cohesion within and between paragraphs so that you have a natural flow from one idea to the next. So to recap, revision includes 4 parts, not necessarily steps, but 4 pieces that you're going to want to do. You want to look at your central idea or your thesis. What's your big idea and is it clearly expressed? You're going to look at your main points and supporting evidence. What are each of the sections of your paper about and are they clearly connected to that thesis? What is my audience and purpose? Have I identified my audience correctly and expressed my ideas to them in a way that they will be able to understand? And organization, have I organized my paragraphs in a logical way, and have I built cohesion between the paragraphs so that my ideas flow from one to the next? So let's practice doing a bit of revision then. In a moment, I'm going to put a paragraph on the screen, and what I want you to do is read it through and revise it. Take a look at it and see, what do you think this paragraph needs? Does it need things removed? Does it need things added? Do we need more examples? We might not be able to talk as much about the thesis because it's just one paragraph, but try and think through, how could I make this paragraph stronger in terms of the ideas and the logical structure? Do I need to add transition words? Do I need to add a little bit more detail? So let me put this on, I'll read the paragraph, and then what I want you to do is pause the video and practice revising for yourself. Here it is. Take the original Superman movie. That was an ambitious production that involved real ingenuity and thought to realize on the screen. Were that film to be made now, there wouldn't be anywhere near the level of innovation and skill required to do what they did. Okay, pause the video, take a stab at revising this, figure out what you would do to add or subtract, and then we will take it up in a moment. Okay, let's take it up. So I think my biggest issue with this paragraph is the supporting argument side of things. We just don't have enough ideas here in order to understand what we're talking about. But you might even say this is an audience issue. Have I given enough information for my audience to understand what I mean? I would say we need to add a sentence. They talk about an ambitious production that involved real ingenuity and thought, but we don't get examples of that. So my recommendation for revising this would be to add some examples. Prove to me that this ambition is true. So this is actually taken from a paragraph. I didn't add this. I actually removed it for the example, but stick with me here. We have this additional sentence added here. The mix of effects work, model making, and in-camera tricks clearly involved much forethought and planning, and as such, the end result clearly benefited. Adding just that one sentence helps us to understand the ambitious way that this movie went about being made. Now, you might have come up with something different, and that's okay. See, that's the beauty of revision. There's not one right answer when it comes to writing. What matters, though, is that you're thinking these things through. How can the ideas be added to? Where are maybe ideas not very clearly expressed? Do I need to take things out? Do I need to redefine, reanalyze? That's what the revision process is all about. And I hope that as we've been talking, that's what you can apply to your own papers as you write.